I'm Officer Patty Esslink, like she said. I am from, obviously, the Canton Police Department. I am the Community Relations Officer, so I deal with all your homeowners associations, I deal with your schools, I deal with all the apartment complexes, condos, anything like that, in gigs like this. So we are going to talk about child abuse. Marcus, if he screws up, it's his fault, because he's pushing the button over there. If you didn't clock in, you're here on your own free time, because we donate things like this when you work for Canton, right? Right? Yes. All right. Child abuse against children. There are very different variables when we talk about crimes against children. We have our child abuse or child neglect, and we'll go into each of these in detail as we go through this presentation. We have child abandonment. We have criminal sexual conduct. We have accosting, enticing, or soliciting a minor for immoral purposes. We have contributing to the delinquency of a minor, child pornography, kidnapping or parental kidnapping, and then the mandatory reporting laws, which all of you will be mandatory reporters. Marcus? A child is anybody under the age of 18, unless they were emancipated through the court system, which means if they go through the court system and they want to get away from their parents and their parents no longer have any rights to them, they are emancipated. A person is a child's parent or guardian. As we go through the laws, this is what the definitions will be. Of any other person who cares for, has custody of, or authority over a child regarding less of the length of time that a child is cared for in the custody of or the subject to the authority of that person. It's a lot of like legal jargon. So in other words, the person who is responsible for that person or that child is the person who has authority over them. It might not be their parents, it may be their grandparents, it may be a foster parent. It doesn't necessarily have to be a parent. Marcus? Some other legal definitions: cruel. Any behavior that is brutal, inhumane, sadistic, or that which tortures. Omission is where the willful failure to provide for food, clothing, or shelter. If someone can't because they don't have the money, that is one thing. If they choose not to and they have the money, that is another thing. Physical harm, when you actually do injury to a child's physical condition. We have serious physical harm and we have serious mental harm. When we deal with physical, it means any physical injury to a child that seriously impairs the child's health or physical well-being, including but not limited to brain damage, skull or bone fractures, hemorrhaging, hematomas, dislocation, sprains, internal injury, poisoning, burn, or scald, or a severe cut. I'm sure you all could read this, but serious mental harm means an injury to a child's mental condition or welfare that is not necessarily permanent but results in visibly demonstrable manifestations of a substantial disorder of thought or mood, which significantly impairs judgment, behavior, capacity to recognize reality, or ability to cope with the ordinary demands of life. So they may not be physically harmed, but mentally, maybe you guys come across a situation, and we'll go through this at the end as well, where someone comes into your guys' care, because you guys have on all types of variations which you guys are dealing with in this whole group here. So a child comes up to you and you can physically see the injuries. That's pretty cut and dry. Now, is it because they're bumps and bruises because they play outside all summer long? We'll talk about that. That's one thing. Or is it grab marks on your arm where you can actually see the fingerprints? Now, would that be abuse? Absolutely. You can see the physical. Mental harm is a little bit different. We have parents who discipline their children differently. You have the parents who scream constantly at their children as their form of discipline. And then you have the parents who, when they are yelling at them, they're belittling them, they're calling them names. The kid is shrugging down in the corner, scared to go with those parents due to the way that they're treated. Mental harm is just as important as physical harm. Marcus? Different degrees of child abuse. When we talk about child abuse in the legal system, when we receive a complaint, we have to investigate that. And then once we do the investigation on that, we have to determine how severe is that complaint. Child abuse first degree, is when a person knowingly and willingly causes serious physical or serious mental harm to a child. And that is the most severe. It's a 15-year felony. So the child has to be under 18 years of age. The person has to be a parent, a guardian, or whoever is caring for that child. They have to knowingly and willingly do it. It has to be intentional. They have to do it on purpose. Serious physical or mental harm, they have to demonstrate it. There has to be some type of injury to them. Second degree, the person's omission causes serious physical harm or serious mental harm to a child, or if the person's reckless acts causes serious physical or harm to the child, such as drunk driving. We will at times get individuals who their parents are intoxicated, they put their kids in the car and they take off. Their reckless act causes that child to be in harm. That is child abuse. Person that knowingly or intentionally commits an act likely to cause serious physical or mental harm, regardless of whether the harm actually results from it. So I get into a car accident, the intoxicated person gets in the car, but they put their kid in the car. Whether they get in a car accident and that kid gets hurt or not, they can still be charged with child abuse. We don't want to wait, oh, the kid didn't get hurt, maybe next time. No, we will charge them regardless if they get hurt or not. Child abuse, law and their degrees. The person knowingly or intentionally commits an act that is cruel to the child, regardless of whether harm results. That is child abuse. And the second is a 4-year felony, so they can go to prison for 4 years. We have the lesser offense of child abuse. Third is when you knowingly or intentionally harm someone. That is a 2-year misdemeanor. Misdemeanor is still severe, but not as severe as a felony. Your child abuse. Fourth degree is your omission or reckless act causing physical harm, which is a 1-year misdemeanor. Like Michael Jackson dangles this kid over the balcony. Stupid act? Absolutely. Could he have been charged with 4th degree child abuse? Potentially, absolutely. Exclusion section does not prohibit person from taking steps to reasonably discipline a child, including the use of reasonable force. There is a fine line between child abuse and discipline. And you as an individual, if you have any feeling whatsoever that, oh, that was a little excessive, report it. It's always better to be safe than to not report something and end up finding out later that you should have reported that. Parents have every right to spank their kid in a disciplined manner. Do we all agree with that? Absolutely not. But depending on how they do it, now if they're whooping them with a belt, Wayne County is going to review that and determine what type of charges will come from that. If they're spanking them because the kid is telling mom off and she pops him on the mouth, can she do that? It depends what the prosecutor thinks. So anytime you see something that you think, hey, maybe that's out of line or that just doesn't seem right, absolutely report everything. Physical abuse. Injury resulting from any physical aggression. Physical punishment is the use of force with the intent of inflicting bodily pain, but not injury for the purpose of correction or control. So that would be discipline. For us, just like for you guys, you have discretion, but if questionable, what would I do? Would I lose my job? Or should I report it? I'm absolutely going to report it. This is usually not a difficult decision. Reports can be filed. If you file a report with DHS or Protective Services and nothing comes from it, then nothing comes from it. But at least you know, and the township knows, hey, you know what, I did what I was supposed to do. Can arrests be made? Once a report is filed, it's investigated, can we make an arrest? We could. Or we could investigate it further, and then we could submit a warrant request, is what they call it, to the prosecutor, which is the lawyers down in Wayne County that review all the cases, and they make the decision on whether or not a crime has been committed. I would advise all mandatory reporters to have the same mentality. So If it seems odd or it doesn't seem right, report it. The system. This is going to be a whole lot of legal jargon. Law enforcement, once the report's made, potentially we make an arrest, we take that child into custody. If there's a situation where you guys are waiting for a parent to come pick this child up and the parent never shows up, obviously you're going to notify your supervisors, they're going to call us, and we're going to come out there and we're going to take that child into custody. Then we will determine where that child goes from there. Do we put them with a family member? Do we put them in a foster home? Where are we going to put them for the time being? And the protective services will tell us where they're going to go. In situations like that, we would then get all the information together. We would submit it to the prosecutor's office, and they would review it. They would come back with whatever charges they're going to come back with. Could be child abandonment because the parent never came to get their child. Could be child abuse. Then it goes in front of the judge. Once the charges come back, they will either say, yeah, I did it, or no, I didn't do it. Then you have your right to your trial. And from there, a verdict will be rendered. So anything dealing with kids for protective services goes through probate or family court. It's a juvenile court. Protective Services is the organization, or DHS, that follows up on all the abuse complaints that are filed. Marcus? What does all of this mean to you? Absolutely nothing, apparently. Do not concern yourselves about the legal jargon. We deal with the laws. You just deal what you're supposed to do. You are mandated reporters. You need to report it. From there, you will be a witness for us. If we need to go to court, we will call upon you and say, hey, what did you see when that caused you to report this? What do I concern myself with? Is it a child? Do I believe abuse or neglect is occurring? Did I witness it? Have they implied abuse or alleged abuse? I had a case where a school reported it because the mother was standing there and said to her, for a 5-year-old child, hey, do you want the shocker? And he's like, no. Well, she had a taser, and she would, every time he would act up, she would shock him with the taser. Right. So did she imply that she was abusing him? Absolutely. The school's like, what are you doing? So they ended up reporting that. Come to find out, she still had the taser at home. I went and took it from her. So she didn't do it in front of anybody, but just her verbiage saying, hey, kind of made you think, what else is going on? What's going on at home? So feel free, obviously, those are red flags. Are injuries consistent with the explanation for the excuse? Oh, he fell down on his skateboard and he's got, finger and thumb bruises on his shoulder or his forearm. Is that consistent? No. Are there reoccurring injuries? Everybody knows what bruises look like. Everybody's had bruises. They have different colors. They start out, they're red, then they're purple, then they're green, and that funky yellow, and all that. Now, if they have bruising all over, and they're reoccurring injuries, similar, you've got yellow ones, you got purple ones, you got bright red ones, I would start thinking, what's up with that? One thing you have to be very careful of is when we deal with children or juveniles, you can't interview them. You can't sit there and say, did your babysitter do that to you? Did the counselor do that to you? What happened to your arm? You can't say anything like that. You can ask them, hey, what happened? Or, oh, where did you get that? But you can't give them any ideas. You can't put ideas into their head. So you can't say, and then you can't say, oh, did mom do that? And then they're like, oh, yeah, mom did that. When really, she may not have. How does a parent or guardian interact with that child in your presence? Are they very sweet? Are they loving? Are they caring? Or are they, get in the car? Come on, get in the car. Pay attention to the interaction that they have. How long has the child been left at your facility? Has it happened before? There are times where we get reports from the schools, and I know, I think we've had it here at the summit, where The parents just never came to pick the kids up from school. Oh, well, school's out. It's the 4th time. Can you go knock on mom's door and see if she'll come get her kid? School gets out, same time, every day. Is it reoccurring? Is it a problem? Yeah, can I forget maybe once? Oh, I got caught up. You know, I just, you know, time flew by. I didn't know what time it was. Maybe once, but 3, 4 times, there's a problem. Trust your instincts and always err on the side of caution. Like I said, if it doesn't feel right, make sure you report it. Is a child always unkept, hungry, dirty, tired, sick, or malnourished? Are they that way because the family cannot afford it, or are they that way on purpose? Maybe, you know, they don't feed them, the child. Now, either way, the family needs help. So either way, you're going to report it. If they can't afford it, there are services out there that can be put into place to help them. Not all bruises are suspect of abuse. I have 3 kids. My children are bruised from head to toe all summer long. They are never in the house. They're outside, falling on bikes, climbing fences, doing whatever. They are constantly bruised. So kind of get a feel for what that child does. Do they sit around all day, play video games? Probably not going to get very bruised up doing that. But are they outside? Are they playing? Try to figure out where the bruising come from. Call the police if you suspect or witness any abuse, neglect, or exploitation. Bruising on the child that is not consistent with anything other than squeezing that child. Go ahead. Physical abuse, unexplained bruises. How did you get that? Oh, I don't know. Or where they just won't tell you. Unusual shapes, sizes, placement. I will tell you, when someone uses a belt, it leaves the long strip from the belt. If the belt has rhinestones on it, it leaves the little rhinestone marks on the body. I have seen that. I just left the Detective Bureau after 3 years in there. You absolutely can tell where the bruising comes from. If they use a spoon, it's going to be shaped like a spoon. So if they use a shoe, it's going to be shaped like a shoe. Unexplained burns, cigarette burns. There are times where children will have round cigarette holes on their bodies. They didn't do it to themselves. Somebody obviously did it to them. Unexplained fractures or lacerations or abrasions on the legs, on the face. If they fall and skin their knee, explainable. Fall and hit their elbows, or roller skating, skateboarding, something like that, explainable. Scratches on their back, you'll want to know where those came from. Any swollen areas, any injuries that aren't cared for. Swollen areas obviously indicate that they could have a broken bone of something. Evidence of delayed or inappropriate treatment from injuries where they, you know, it's been 3 weeks and they still have this ace bandage on and the family's never taken them to the doctor, even though you know the arm's broken. They can't put pressure on it. They're always crying because it hurts. Inappropriate treatment for injuries. Marcus? Witnessing any physical abuse. Try to deflect or distract the parent. If something happens and you see this abuse happening to somebody, do what you feel is safe. I'm not going to tell you to, if the child is being harmed, to run out and stand in front of that vehicle as that family is driving away. No, but can you get a description of the vehicle? Absolutely. Can someone call the police while you are out there getting a license plate number? Absolutely. Does that mean I want you to stand like in front of the car? No way. Do I want you to run behind it and stand there and be like, just stay right there. I'm writing your license plate number down. Just stay right there. No, I don't want to put you in any danger, but call the police immediately. Keep an eye on the child. If it's serious enough to remove the child from that parent until they're cooled down, I don't want to put you in any harm's way. I would leave that to the police. Try to stall them if you can. If you can leave, if they leave, follow them out to the parking lot. Try to obtain a license plate, description of the vehicle. Most of you will already know who these people are because you have their kids' registration. I would think that you have all their parents' information. You would know who they are, so you could give us all that information. And then your best, what we will need you for is being a witness. You will be the best witness that we have. You're going to fill out a statement and tell us exactly what you saw. So, all right, physical neglect, abandonment. Parent just never shows up to pick up their kid. Unattended medical needs. You have, this injury that hasn't gone away. You know it's broken because the kid cries every time they move it. That is neglect. They have to take care of the child. Consistent lack of supervision. The parents are never home. The kid tells you, you know what? They're 6. My parents went out last night. Well, who was with you? Nobody. I just hung out. Well, what'd you do all night? I just watched TV. You kind of need a parent there. They're 6. Consistent hunger, inappropriate dress, poor hygiene. In other words, malnourished. Can they not afford it, or are they just nobody cares and they're not feeding them? Lice. I'm not really sure why this is on there. Obviously, lice is not the sole, hey, you know what, you have lice, we're calling CBS, because any elementary school around with little kids in it with long hair is going to have lice. So inadequate nutrition. So in other words, like I said previously, if they're not eating, you have to feed, they have to be nourished. Sexual abuse. Most of this you will never see. How young are the kids that you guys deal with? 5? Are they potty trained? Okay. When we're referring to sexual abuse, torn, stained, or bloody underclothing, pain or swelling or itching in the genital area, difficulty walking or sitting, bruising or bleeding in the genitalia area, venereal disease, frequent urinary or yeast infections. You are most likely not going to see these signs. You may hear the complaints. They will come from the victim's disclosure of the incident. Like, hey, they went to the bathroom and they're like, I can't sit down, or, my pants are all bloody. Obviously, you're going to ask them why. And then whatever they tell you is what they tell you. You're going to have to kind of do your little investigation on, okay, what's up? Why are they crying every time they go to the bathroom? Do they have a urinary tract infection, or is it something else? What's going on? And anything that comes to your, that are red flags, obviously you're going to report. Child pornography and exploitation is much more common than you have a clue. It is the most prevalent thing that we deal with when we deal with kids. So be aware of whether it's parents or aunts or uncles or anything. If the kid ever says to you, hey, Uncle Johnny was taking pictures of me last night. Oh, well, what were you doing? What were you doing taking pictures? Or what was he doing taking pictures? Figure out, if he says something, he just said he wanted to look at whatever. What is he taking pictures of? Try to get an idea of what photographs are being taken of them. Anything that throws up red flags, obviously you're going to report and you're going to call the police. Child prostitution, sex slaves, child slave labor, criminal solicitation, where you use a child to commit a crime or assist in a crime. You probably won't deal with this so much, but we have a situation right now where a mom is sending her kids into stores to steal, and her 10-year-old goes in and steals and then comes back out. That would be criminal solicitation. It's crazy. Child sex rings, selling children, underground networks fall under more serious crimes. The feds would take care of all that. So, what happens after a report is filed? You guys are the mandated reporters. You notify protective services. They generate a written report. When they get done with that written report, it gets sent to the police department. I would think that even though, depending on the situation, if you guys are reporting something to Child Protective Services, and if it is a pretty serious issue, you're going to call the police at the same time that you're reporting that to Protective Services. You're going to fill out the appropriate forms, and you're going to start all that paperwork. We may arrest, depending on the crime, or we may seek a warrant, which means that's where we get all the investigation done, and then we submit all of our evidence to the prosecutor, and they will review it, and they will determine the charges that come out of it. We are not prosecuting attorneys. We are not judges. We are not juries. And we can only do what we do. Your guys' sole purpose is to report what you see and be a good witness to help the case later on if it so goes to court. Will you have to testify in court? Absolutely. Which don't let it scare you. Very few of these cases actually go in front of a jury or actually a trial. Most of the time, the people know what they have done and they just plead to it flat out right there because they don't want to drag their kid through that whole mess. You may have to testify in court if it actually goes that far. Your written statements have to be accurate and detailed because what you write in that statement is what the court will know about that incident. If it's 3 years down the road when we finally get to court, which it happens, and you say, oh, I didn't write that in my statement, but I remember this. The defense attorney is going to be like, are you making that up? Why are you lying? You didn't write that in your statement. Put everything that you remember from the time that it happened in your statement. They must, oh, whatever, don't worry about it. They must be accurate. If I do nothing, can I be charged? Absolutely. If you fail to report, it is a misdemeanor. Depending on the severity of the crime, it could be a felony. If you fall under the mandating reporting law, and you could be charged with a crime if you fail to report that. We had a child abuse case where the suspected abuse was not reported by the daycare manager, and 2 weeks later, the child was killed. So you have to make sure that if anything comes up and you think that, oh, should I report this, should I not report this, report it. Regardless of what it is, we'll figure it out later. Between the police and protective services, we'll figure it out if it is something that we have to be concerned about. Questions? I think that's it. Is that it? All right, that's good. No questions? Was that too fast?
Not dealing necessarily with that.
Oh, okay.
I asked the question last year, but how does Canton or Wayne County, per se, whatever, deal with texting and driving?
Texting and driving. It has always been illegal to drive while distracted. This whole texting and driving law was put into place even though we already had a driving while distracted law. So regardless, if you're texting or as I pulled one doctor over because he was reading his emails, I'm not texting, it is still against the law. So if someone is texting while they're driving, you will get pulled over and you will be issued a ticket. If you're reading your emails while you're driving or you're eating McDonald's in your lap and driving with your knees, it is still distracted driving. But this texting while driving made it all come forward because of the issues that we were having. But it's still. Is there a leeway at a red light? I guess it would depend on the officer. Are you paying attention? You know if there's any emergency vehicles coming through? It just depends on what's going on. So.
Is there
Sure.
an age limit for Child Protective Services when they call?
18. Anybody under the age of 18, anybody under the age of 18 is considered a child. Though, anybody who is, and this will screw you right up, 17 in the legal system is considered an adult. So if Trisha here, how old are you?
22.
Oh, crud. I need somebody who's 17. This girl, what's your name? Andrea decides, you know what, I'm going to go out and I'm going to thieve from Meyer and I'm going to steal whatever she's going to steal. We're going to come to Meyer, we're going to arrest her and we're going to take her to we're going to take her to jail. No ifs, ands, or buts. We don't call mom and dad and say, you know what, Andrea made a really bad mistake tonight and she decided to steal. No, we don't do that. She goes to jail and if she wants to call her mom, that's her own problem. But 17, you're considered an adult in the legal system, so you can go sit into an adult jail, all of that. Protective services, and the reason why we're here, is 18. So, yes?
What if there's an adult who has a cognitive impairment who might be abusing
Very good. Yes, they have a special unit for that. Just like elder abuse, they have, if you have any mental impairment or handicap, they have a unit for that, that absolutely. You may be 22 on paper, but you don't have the mentality of a 22-year-old. You have a 10-year-old's mentality. So report that. Anything else? Are you excited about your summer job? Look at this. The enthusiasm. Any other questions? Everybody working Liberty Fest? No. Man, how do I get stuck working all Liberty Fest and you guys don't? Come on, I've been here longer. All right. Anything else? Nothing? Question? 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 All right. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Hey, sure.